Behind me is what you call a Volkswagen Passat. And this looks very European, German for that matter. But all you need to do is take a ride on the Chattanooga Choo Choo to realize this guy is all American. Well, at least the final assembly point. Now, when you look at the Passat as a whole, you realize it doesn't blow you away in styling. I would say it's more understated. It's probably for somebody that is just want things very clean, very simple. And this is where this hits a home run. You know, as I sit here and listen to myself, I realize I'm just kind of making excuses for this car. It's clean, but the real issue is, well, there's a lot of competition out there, and I'm not even going to spend the time to name all of them. But you look at this, and you kind of look at the hard data and realize that this architecture is over 4.5 years old now. Even with the refresh, it just doesn't stand out enough. But the good thing is you don't see a lot of these on the road. Well, maybe you do and you just don't notice it. Okay, so here's the counterpoint. Front to back, the body gap's good, the panel fitment's good, the paint job is good. There's not a lot to complain about it with this exterior. So whether it has flair or not, whether it has enough style for you, that's something you're gonna have to decide when you go and take a look at this thing in person. Now let's talk about that trunk. When you're looking at a sedan, you wanna know that you have enough here to cover you. And the depth of this is where it impresses me. I put my bleached rubber gloves and duct tape in here, and they slid all the way forward. And when I had to bend in here to get them, I literally pulled my glutes. I mean, I almost tore them in half. So even with the seats down, I mean, it's crazy how much space is in there. The width is kind of where it's troubling. It doesn't have the width that I would like compared to some of the other trunks that I've seen. But again, you know, this is a usage case. Just go and open it up and take a look at it for yourself. The interior space of the Passat, like most VWs, is, in one word, clean. It looks like the people who designed this have a severe case of OCD, where they have to line up all their little trinkets with 2 millimeters of space in between, or their sugar packets have to be perfectly aligned. And when I say that, it's not a bad thing. They haven't sterilized this interior either. It's just clean and simple. It's like a throwback to the late 90s and 2000s, where car interiors weren't just overbearing places to be. The dashboard isn't just ginormous for no reason. The buttons and knobs are cleanly laid out. It's just very nice. Then we come to the beige interior on the Passat, and like most light-colored interiors, the leather's discolored already. You can see all the dirt and the grime. You have to take more care to keep lighter color interiors well clean, so it's something to note. And then you get to my least favorite part of this car, and that is the plasti wood trim all over it that looks like somebody went to Ikea and just threw up veneer everywhere. And it's just, I don't get it. Why do you put fake plastic wood in cars? And then the more I drove it, the more I realized it fits the personality of this interior really well. It brightens up the space. I got out of the Hyundai Elantra Sport, and it was just like a doldrum in there of just blackness. And it's one of the things about this cabin that just kind of elevates it a little bit. It's not just one monochromatic palette. There's a little bit going on here with all the different textures, the colors. And it's something I think most people that like light interiors will appreciate. Now on to some of the best parts about the Passat interior, and that is its overall comfort, space, and nooks and crannies. Cup holders are good, the armrest is good, it kind of moves forward and back so you can kind of adjust it. The center cubby can fit pretty much a small tablet in it. I mean, it's just got so much utilization for interior, human capacity is what I'm looking for. You're going to be very stretched not to be comfortable in here, namely in the back seats where it's so easy to get in and out of. There's so much leg room. And again, it just feels like a very bright, very clean space. Now I could go in great detail about the touch points, the ergonomics, all of that is really good on the Passat, including the gauge cluster legibility. It's just, they do it so well here that I can't even complain about it. It's a huge pro for this interior. But let's go on to the technology, namely the infotainment. Now there are two options here for this, one smaller screen, one larger screen. But when you get down to the nuts and bolts, this newer setup is one of my favorites for a couple reasons. One is the speed of the UI, or the user interface. It's quick to get around, it's easy to swipe, it's capacitive, multi-touch, so it reacts like a smartphone. It doesn't lag, it doesn't delay, your phone connects quickly to it, things load promptly. When you're in your maps, you can pinch to zoom, and they get smart here and they add a proximity bar in between the volume knob and the tuning knob. So when you're not using it, it kind of collapses the menus so you can see more on the screen. And then when you put your hand close, it expands the menus so you have touch buttons that are good for a human finger and not for like a toddler. There's just so much good in here that I think they can continue to improve on, and there's very little I can recommend that they even do, honestly, except having a physical command knob that you don't have to spend so much time into the touch UI. But I like that you can just hit the power button, turn off the screen, and you're done. This is definitely one of the better user interfaces, and I think it's a lot because of the speed factor. The VW Passat, I'm gonna say this straight up, I anticipated I was going to absolutely hate this car because this is totally not something I'd be interested in. And to my surprise, it's wound up being one of the most entertaining and best driving midsize cars I've been in for a couple reasons. Now, here's the thing. The people that are going to watch this are going to want to know the highlights. They're going to want this more concise. So here it goes. Let's talk about the pros first. The engine choice. If you choose the 3.6 liter, it is amazing. This is exactly why you want a naturally aspirated motor in a midsize car. Because once you get behind the wheel, you realize you have a level of consistency. Every time I downshift and do this, it's the same every time. It's the same acceleration, the same smoothness. There's no tuning issues. There's no heat soak from turbos. There's no lag or inconsistency in performance. It's the same every time I hit the gas, and it's one of the best parts. The second thing is, of course, this car feels like a rocket. It's got to be one of the fastest mid-size cars out there, despite it having, well, not the top horsepower numbers, but it's really good. The second part that is a huge pro for this vehicle is the transmission. Aside from the Mazda, which is a torque converted unit, this is a dual clutch, and this is kind of one, well, really the benchmark for dual clutch automatics in this price range. It does whatever the hell you want it to. As long as you don't want it to hold revs, because it auto upshifts. Between the transmission and the motor, I think most people are going to be completely wowed by this, especially when you take a look at the competition. It is really, really up there in terms of performance. The next pro really is the ride comfort. This thing is just so sorted. The body control's good. It just feels good on the road. This level of solidity, as long as you don't ask it to do too much, because this thing is soft, more softly sprung. There's no doubt about it. It's more of a cruiser. It's more of a mash your foot on the throttle and go fast in a straight line. Once you start to kind of just push it through the corners, it doesn't like it. The understeer comes on, and the traction control system is so aggressive on this car. The understeer is just absurd, which I'm going to show you right now. So we're going to try to turn and accelerate, which, you know, is going to be a moot point. There's the traction control. Now the power comes in. But man, when the power comes in, it is so good. And then, of course, let's downshift. Amazing. So that's really the main thing about this car. Now we're going to have to talk about the cons. And the cons are, well, you're going to have to know this. It doesn't bother me, but it's going to bother a lot of people, is it has a lot more road noise. It is a noisier cabin. I hear tire noise, road noise, and it's going to be a deal breaker for some people. I know it. It seems to be a very sensitive topic on modern cars. I like the fact that I can hear some noise. It's not totally isolated, and, well, of course, I'm not going to fall asleep driving it. So, after all this, the biggest negative of the Passat, when so many things are so well sorted, it's such a clean, solid feeling car. They've gone and mucked up the steering. I don't know why they do it this way, but it is some of the just laziest steering I've been in the midsize car segment. It is just so slow and so sloppy. It feels like you're driving with, freshly cooked donuts on the wheels. It just doesn't respond. It's like a U-Haul truck. And I don't get why they've done it. It's like they've tuned it for somebody that has two broken arms that just can't move their hands, just need a really soft wheel. And it kills the sportiness, it kills a lot of the tuning for it, and there's really no way to adjust it. It just is what it is. But if you can live with that, and you opt for this 3.6 liter, this is going to be a very, very good cruiser. I've enjoyed driving it more so than I've driven a lot of cars lately, because it just has so much balls, and I just have so much fun and comfort driving it. So take that for what it's worth. The conclusion, the Passat. Well, this is no BS. It's all about function with this. What you see is what you get. And this is going to be a huge pro for a lot of people that are looking for that. The next big pro is the drivetrain. The V6 and the dual clutch in here is pretty much the best in its class. If you're looking for horsepower and the best automatic, don't look anywhere else. You're going to be blown away. It is really quick for what it is. Now, if you're somebody that values chassis dynamics, handling, sportier feel, good steering, you're going to be totally disappointed with this car, because it's not about that. This is more of a cruiser. Now, here's one of the biggest intangibles, and that is emotional factor, or just character. This doesn't have a lot of character, and if you're somebody that doesn't need that, that's going to be a pro. And if you're somebody that is has an emotional connection to a car, this is going to be a huge con. So take that for what it's worth, and happy shopping.